Thanks for tuning into the Trade Setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Niraj Shah. I unfortunately don't have the best news for all of you this morning. I think what is certain is that there'll be volatility. Let me put it that way. Now, first, what the US markets did overnight, and I think they came off. One of the reasons why I think this is happening, because Europe also came off, is that the virus cases, especially in Europe, are really rising at a dramatic pace. So unfortunately, on the COVID front, we don't have great news. And while it may not be an unknown known, the fact that there is a bit of a second wave in COVID-19, which may lead to opening up not being as strong in that region matters. Now, we may argue that it's not happening in India, but hey, that's where the money bags are, Europe and US. And if there is a front and center COVID problem there, it impacts flows. So keep that at the back of your mind. But you also have to bear in mind that the big trigger for the markets on the upside, which is the stimulus package, that is maybe a bit closer. Now, again, nobody can time this, right? Who knows what will happen? But I'm drawing your attention to a tweet by somebody in Nancy Pelosi's team. I think her name is Drew Hamill. She is the support staff of Nancy Pelosi, if I'm not wrong. And the first tweet that she's mentioned, where she says that the Speaker and Secretary Stephen Mnuchin spoke for about 48 minutes, and it brings us closer to being able to put pen to paper to write legislation on the stimulus bill. Now, that is something that all short traders should be wary of. If you are indeed just investing on the cash side, then you should actually hope for this to happen, because that will bring about a spurt in the markets. But until then, there is a problem. And I think the problem is clear and present simply because the US futures, as we speak, are trading with a gash of red, about 150 odd points for the Dow, NASDAQ about 0.5%. So the futures are not looking all that strong. Now, the other bad news is on the COVID front, right? I mean, AstraZeneca shares will slid, of course. I mean, the Indian arm also might be in problem today, because the Brazilian health authority had said that the volunteer in the COVID vaccine study is passed away. Now, that is not great news. Asia has multiple problems. The fact that this has happened, the fact that IMF has downgraded the forecast for growth in the region has led to the Asian screen not starting off on the best of notes. So about 0.78% lower for HSI, KOSPI2 meandering along the other broader markets too, not having the best of moves. And the SGX Nifty, I think, should mirror this. I'll be really surprised if we have a big up day in the markets today. No case for that. Really no case for that. It's not that we've had 3 or 4 big earnings which are looking very strong or otherwise, and the rest of the support, the rest of the region is not looking all that great. So the SGX Nifty 2 should be indicating a start in the red. And even if it's not, let me tell you, viewers, that we will have a start which is in the red and possibly meandering towards the downside in the session today as opposed to the upside. Now, the only thing is that, and I'll show you a chart later on, but I first want to bring up the trade setup, because it's important to analyze how to go about, trade in the very short term. Because yesterday too, it was choppy trade, just that the market breadth was positive for the last couple of days, and which is a bit of a respite from a home perspective. Now, you also got to try and figure out sector rotation, viewers. Everybody was parked into pharma. Pharma, the last few days, as we mentioned, has come off. Everybody is trying to park themselves in Reliance and IT, and that's turned to choppy too. And what's come to the fore? Building materials. The last 2 days, real estate, cement, and steel have seen buying interest. So suddenly, people who were parked in the others, from a trade perspective, are not making money, but people who were parked into real estate, who were parked into cement, were parked into metals, have suddenly seen an uptick. So be very careful and nimble when you're trading on some of these sectors. And participation BFSI, I think, is likely to continue because of strong foreign flows. Because if you just look at the FI and the DI flows for the last few days, you will see the point that I was making in trade yesterday as well, that the FI flows continue to be positive. 2,109 crores in trade yesterday, which is quite stellar. And that should mean that BFSI, in all 1 o'clock, we drifted lower, went down, then again showed a V-shaped recovery. And this shows how choppy and uncertain the market is. So please be very careful if you're trading, is the limited point I'm making. Now, what to watch in the session today? Asian Paints, the numbers are anticipated today. During market hours, will be important set of numbers to watch out for. As also Bajaj Auto, the first of the auto earnings starts off. And while it may not be a quarter symptomatic of what's happening to the rest of the two-wheeler pack, it'll be an important one to monitor purely from a commentary perspective too. So you watch out for that. Watch out for Ambuja. Cement is looking very strong. Ambuja is likely to pay out a hefty dividend, so you should watch out for that. Bharti Infratel and Biocon would be the other ones that I would watch out for. But in terms of stocks that you should monitor on open today, there are a bunch of them, so I'll kind of rush through them. First, GMM Pfaudler. I thought the numbers were good. Revenues were up about 21%. The profit after tax up about 30%. Margins at 21.2% versus 20%. Now, this is a stock that has corrected quite viciously from those erstwhile high levels, and it's trading at levels where institutional investors put in money. The company is guided to a 2,000 crore revenue number for FY21 with margins above 13%, which means that the stock, which used to trade at 70, 80 times, is now trading at about 32 times current year earnings, FY21 earnings. 32 times is probably not that expensive. So there's no case for going out and selling off a GMM Pfaudler now. That's the point that I'm trying to make. I may be wrong, but I think that that thesis should hold true. So that's how maybe you should approach GMM Pfaudler if you indeed have the stock, or if you're looking to buy, maybe the downsides are limited. SAGAR Cements, and I was talking about how cement is looking very strong. Their Q2 FY21 numbers, just want to highlight them. EBITDA was up 146%. Margins zoomed up from 15.9% to 32%. The first half EBITDA was higher than the FY20 EBITDA. That tells you something about what this company is doing, right? It trades at very good valuations. We'll have exposure to the central region, except the southern region now in the next couple of years. Could be an interesting one. Though I must admit that the smaller cement stocks somehow don't get the premiums. So be careful. Valuation is in your favor, but maybe people will still prefer the large caps. And I'll tell you why with ULTRATECH later on. Federal Bank is another stock in focus because I think the releases seem to suggest that Rakesh Jhunjhunwala has reduced the stake from 3.18% to 2.71%, and which means that apparently you sold about 1 crore shares since June end. This is from exchange filings, courtesy BloombergQuint calculations. Maybe Federal Bank could be under a spot of bother today. Let's wait and watch. Vedanta, and maybe a few people would have short sold this, but this might set the cat among the pigeons when it comes to short sellers. The board is going to consider and approve the first interim dividend on equity shares, if any, by the way. It's not necessary that they will get dividend, but this is something that now should be in play. The record date for the entitlement for the said dividend is October 31st. I think what Vedanta has done very smartly by this announcement is cap downsides. I doubt that anybody would have the gumption to come out and short sell Vedanta at the current point of time, because this dividend carrot, if any, lays, I think, stems the downside for Vedanta in the stock. So if you are short today, you might want to revisit your stance. If you are thinking that you want to go short on Vedanta, you want to revisit your stance maybe as well. Do your own research. This is just my assumption of what this announcement does. But be careful if you're indeed wanting to short sell Vedanta. And like I was saying, cement is looking very strong. So Jefferies has come out with a note on ULTRATECH, and some of the others too have come out. They have maintained a buy with the price target raised to 5,600. They've raised the EPS by 5 to 30% across time frames, driven by a strong beat in Q2 and improving volume outlook. They went through the con call and they believe that the demand commentary was fairly strong, led by unprecedented rural consumption in the words of the management. And they believe that the Q2 demand was strong across regions except for southern region and Maharashtra, which too, they say, saw a better month of September. So watch out for ULTRATECH. Could have an interesting day today. It bounced back very, very sharply in trade yesterday after falling for the first 5 minutes post results. Maybe there could be more in store. So this is something that all of us should watch out for too. Last but not the least, a few stocks based on their trading patterns yesterday, the long and short build up of late. We're not just concentrating on delivery percentages, but also on the long short build up that has happened. So Godrej Properties was very interesting. Like I was saying, building materials are starting to gain, cement, steel, and real estate itself. So Godrej Properties had a 30% OI change, fresh longs built there. Apollo Tires, on the back of that IFL note, saw some big build up there. And Britannia continued to face some music. So down for second on a trot, fresh OI change, fresh shorts build up. Be careful if you're trading Britannia. In fact, could well see a bit of a spike if indeed there's some bit of short covering, but for now, it doesn't look like. However, as I said, lots of stocks to monitor. Be careful on sectoral rotation. The downward bias, though, remains today because the world markets are not looking all that strong. Thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup today.